talking about the Cambridge Law Test, or the CLT. Hi everyone, my name is Amy and I'm a second year law student at Churchill College, Cambridge. As you may be aware, a lot of unis require you to sit aptitude tests when you're applying to law, but across the board it generally tends to be the LNAP. Cambridge does not require the LNAP, but they do require the Cambridge Law Test. You will only sit the Cambridge Law Test if you're called for interview. It's not done beforehand in that October half term like a lot of the other application tests are. It is done on the day of your interviews and it is administered by the college that you're applying to. This year that will be online and probably around the end of November. However, in previous years it's been in person at the college. So the test itself is really quite simple. You have an hour and you have to write an essay. There are 5 to 6 essays to choose from. The essay questions themselves will be related to the law, but, and I cannot stress this enough, you do not need to have any knowledge of the law in order to sit the Cambridge Law Test. There is a clear marking criteria, what the university is looking for, your identification of and engagement with the issues raised by the question, the critical analysis and evaluation of ideas, your clarity of written expression, whether the candidate has explained his or her reasoning in a clear and logical way, and whether the candidate, you, has produced a coherent, well-structured and balanced argument. So they're looking for your skills in communication and your skills in essay writing rather than your skills and knowledge of the law. You do not need any knowledge of the law to do this, and don't stress yourself out by thinking you do. The only knowledge you need for this is general essay writing knowledge, stuff that you will have picked up in your A-levels, and an ability to read the question and engage with the question. So I'll discuss some sample questions in a minute, but first I just want to mention how this is marked. It's quite annoying in that you will never get your mark back on this. You get given a number 1 to 10. You will never find out what this number is, and it's a number given by the fellow of the college who will mark your test. It's not really a mark, it's more of a feeling of what they think the level that your work is at. A number between 1 and 3 is a candidate who's probably unacceptable for Cambridge. 4 is a weak candidate. A 5 means that they are doubtful of an offer. A 6, possibly worth an offer. 7, probably worth an offer. 8, strong, worth an offer. 9, very strong, definitely worth an offer. And 10 is an exceptional applicant that they must take. Now, because you never find out what number you've been given, it's not necessary for you to really know exactly how it's marked, but I think it's helpful to understand what they're actually taking out of this. So they're not nitpicking and looking through for spelling and grammar mistakes, and again, no one cares about inaccuracies in the law in this instance. They're just giving you a mark on how well they think your piece is overall. Cool. So, if we look at some examples of some types of questions you're likely to get in the Cambridge Law Test. So like I said, they will be legally related, but you don't need legal knowledge to answer it. For example, should a drug dealer ever be punished for the death of someone who overdoses on drugs that he has supplied? You don't know the law on when we consider things murder, how close they have to be to the death, and you don't need to know the law. All you need to do here is identify the issues. You need a clear line of argument throughout. I would always advise on taking a strong stance, as either saying, yes, drug dealers should always be punished for the death of someone who overdoses on drugs that they've supplied, or no, they shouldn't because it's that person's responsibility, or sometimes I think they should be when they've maybe knowingly supplied too much, or knowingly supplied a mixture of drugs, or knowingly lied to the customer. The important thing is having your opinion and then getting it across clearly. One of the things which differs here slightly from A-level essays is that in your A-level essays and GCSE essays, you're likely to have presented a very balanced argument of this is one side, this is the other side, and here's my conclusion in the middle. Specifically history essays, which I took at A-level, tended to be like that. The difference here is what we want is a clear argument. We want you to present arguments from the other side. So for example, if I was arguing that no, a drug dealer should never be punished for the death of someone who overdoses on drugs that they have supplied, I would say no, because we all have free will, we have personal responsibility, they're just supplying a product. It is illegal, yes, but we cannot make them responsible for other people's actions further down the line. It would spiral out of control. I'm still going to discuss the arguments against my argument. So I could say, however, punishing drug dealers for the death of someone who overdoses will ensure that they are more responsible in supplying drugs and will in fact be a massive deterrent to supplying drugs, because if they supply drugs to someone who then dies, they'll be going to prison for life for murder, and that is a big deterrent. It's a different level of crime. But then, because I have my strong argument of no, I will then dismiss the argument and say, however, drug dealing is already punishable by a high prison sentence and does not seem right that they will be deterred by the slightly larger one for murder. The point is, you have your clear argument, but you discuss the other arguments against what you're saying and then knock them away. Keep your points strong. There are lots of examples of the kind of questions that you can get on the Cambridge Law Test, again on the uni website. So let's have a little talk about the best way to prepare for this then. Probably the number one way is familiarising yourself with the type of questions you're likely to get. To do that, you just need to look up the stuff on the website. I've given the example of the drug dealer question. Another one might be, promises should be legally enforceable. Do you agree? Or some forms of conduct that would normally constitute a criminal offence will not constitute such an offence if the person affected by the conduct has consented to it. Do you agree this is a sensible position for the law to have adopted? Of course, they're thinking about things there like boxing matches, rugby matches, stuff like that where you can consent to being hurt by someone else. There's so many sample questions on that website. Then the next thing to do is have a practice writing this type of essay where you have a clear argument, move the other arguments to the side and keep going with your solid point. You can practice that on any kind of question. LNAT essay questions are very similar to this. You can practice on those questions as well. Get used to writing essays in time conditions. And remember, you've got an hour. Budget in about 5-ish minutes to pick the question you're going to do, 5-ish minutes to write a rough plan, and then the rest of the time you can just get writing on your essay. Other things you can do to prepare, there's a really good chapter in Letters to a Law Student by Nick McBride, which is, first of all, a really good book for applying to law at uni. It's really helpful throughout the application process, but there is a really good chapter in there on writing this kind of essay that uni supervisors and lecturers want to see. Aside from that, I just want to reiterate, don't stress too much about this test. It is an hour, it is one essay, and it is not the be-all or end-all. Like I said earlier, you sit it at interview, you don't sit it beforehand like a lot of the other application tests. So for something like engineering, if they get a bad score on that application test in the half term, there is a chance that they won't get invited for interview partially on the basis of that test. Because you are already at interview, that's not so much a worry. This test is just another thing that the university consider alongside your personal statement, your interviews, and everything you've already done. It's just another part of your application, another part of the puzzle that makes up your application, and it's not something to worry too much about. I really hope that this video has been helpful. Again, all the stuff you need to know is online. I'm wishing you all lots of luck for your application and well done for even considering applying for Cambridge.